Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something pretty terrifying, a scenario where a 5,000-year-old trade route doesn't just fail, it threatens to become our apocalypse. Yeah, we're talking about how history's greatest highway could turn into a global funeral pyre. So let's just start with this idea. Imagine a ribbon of fire snaking across deserts and mountains. It's a powerful image, right? And it's at the heart of this crisis scenario, unfolding in the very near future along one of the most critical economic arteries on the planet, the ancient Silk Road. You know, the one they brought back for the 21st century? Well, it's on fire.
All right, let's jump right in. The scene is set for the very near future, March 2026 to be exact. A geopolitical powder keg has just gone off. And right at the center of that blast, the absolute keystone of China's entire global strategy.
So, in this scenario, Iran gets hit with a perfect storm. We're talking massive protests raging in the streets of Tehran, pipelines exploding out in the Persian Gulf, and proxy wars with Israel and Saudi Arabia just igniting. And to top it all off, Houthi rebels blockade the Red Sea. What's the result? Well, global shipping costs spike by a staggering 300%. An absolutely critical piece of the world economy is pushed right to the edge of total collapse.
And this brings us to the central mystery of the whole thing. China has billions, actually trillions invested. Their entire global strategy is at risk. So why are they just watching? You see, Beijing is eerily silent. And this isn't because they don't know what to do. No, this is a calculated, incredibly high-stakes gamble. The plan seems to be, let the chaos burn itself out, and then swoop in and assert control over a much weaker, more dependent Iran. But to really get why they would risk so much, we've got to go back in time.
You know, to understand China's, let's call it paralysis in this scenario, looking at modern politics just isn't enough. We have to rewind the clock. And I don't mean just a few years. We're talking about going back millennia to the very beginnings of this legendary and, yeah, often cursed trade route. The thing about the Silk Road is that its entire 5,000-year history is a story of blood and gold. It's always been this cycle of incredible boom and catastrophic bust. For every century of unbelievable prosperity, there was a moment of total collapse. You know, whether it was the Mongol hordes sacking Baghdad or the rise of sea travel making the whole land route obsolete. This history is just a constant rhythm of connection and then destruction.
Okay, so fast forward to today. Let's talk about China's trillion-dollar gamble. This is the modern resurrection of that ancient road. Back in 2013, China unveiled its Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. And this thing was and is a stunningly ambitious plan. The goal? To finally break that historical cycle of collapse and, well, rewire the entire globe with China sitting squarely at the center of it all.
And they definitely put their money where their mouth is. We're talking about $1 trillion. That's a 1 with 12 zeros, poured into this massive global network of ports, railways, and pipelines stretching across 150 countries. It was basically Silk Road 2.0. And the whole point was to lock in China's economic dominance for the next 100 years.
But, and this is a huge but, this massive investment came with a pretty controversial strategy. Critics started calling it debt trap diplomacy. And the idea behind it is brutally simple. You extend these huge loans to a borrowing nation, loans you know they can't possibly repay, with the real intention of extracting concessions or just taking their stuff when they can't pay you back. And here's exactly how that playbook works. It's a 4-step process. Step 1, China comes in and funds some massive infrastructure project with these enormous loans. Step 2, the country getting the loan starts to struggle. We're talking hyperinflation, unemployment. Their economy just buckles. Step 3, the nation defaults on its debt. It was going to happen, right? And finally, step 4, China takes control of the strategic asset, the port, the railway, whatever it is they just paid to build. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. We have real-world case studies. Take Pakistan. They're drowning in $60 billion of debt for the Gwadar port. Sri Lanka, they were forced to hand over their Hambantota port on a 99-year lease. And Iran, well, they signed a massive $400 billion deal and were walking that exact same path. Youth unemployment was already hitting 40%. They were next in line for this economic capture.
So now we see how the dominoes fall. You've got this long history of collapse, and now you have this modern economic trap all set up. So let's go back to our 2026 crisis, because when that Iranian domino finally falls, it doesn't fall alone. Oh no. It triggers a massive global cascade. The first and most immediate impact, energy prices. Look at this chart. Before the crisis, oil is at about $75 a barrel. After,
it shoots up to 150. It literally doubles. Why? Because the Strait of Hormuz, which is the choke point for about 20% of the entire world's oil supply, is now effectively closed. And this isn't just a price hike you feel at the pump. This is a shockwave big enough to trigger a worldwide recession. And the fallout just spirals from there. Look at this before and after snapshot. Global trade, which was stable, is now choked and high cost. Inflation, once contained, is now roaring. And the risk of a major war, it goes from low to medium to high, with the odds of a conflict over Taiwan jumping to 60%. And things like climate goals, forget about it. They're abandoned in a desperate scramble for energy security. You know, this is where history gives us a really chilling parallel. The last time the original Silk Road collapsed, it led to the age of exploration, right? European powers had to find new sea routes, and that kicked off centuries of really brutal colonial conflict. This time, a collapse of this magnitude, well, it could lead to an age of global conflict, something far, far worse. So this whole thing becomes history's funeral pyre. What's the ultimate takeaway here? What does China's failed gamble and the burning of the Silk Road actually mean for the rest of the world? And more importantly, for you? So let's compare China's strategy to the cold, hard reality. The bet was that Iran would survive as a weekend-dependent state, that they could just patiently wait out some temporary unrest. But the reality? The regime doesn't just get weakened, it topples, it shatters. And that fractures the entire region, risks loose nukes, and completely metastasizes the crisis. What does that do to China's trillion-dollar investment? Poof, it's destroyed. And look, this isn't just some abstract geopolitical game happening on the other side of the planet. What this means for you, for me, for all of us is very real. It means our supply chains are way more fragile than we thought. It means the whole illusion of easy globalization is shattered. It means a crisis thousands of miles away directly drives the prices you pay right here at home. And for nations that depend on imports, it could mean famine and instability. So we're left with this final thought. The wheel of history turns, don't get crushed. That's really the ultimate lesson from the Silk Road's inferno. It's a stark one. For centuries, this route has built empires, and its collapse has shattered them. We're living in a world where these ancient connections are fracturing all over again, and the warning couldn't be clearer. You either adapt to this new, fractured world, or you get consumed by the flames.